Hello, everybody. My name is Zeenat Islam, and I'm the Relations Manager Academia Network at Yunus Center. Today is the 40th session of our YSBC web lecture series. The topic of our conversation today is Social Business Research Prospects with speaker Dr. Zhao Meng, Senior Lecturer, Nanyang Business School, and he's also the Co-Director of the Yunus Center at Renmin University, China. The session today will be moderated by Dr. Farhana Ferdousi, Assistant Professor, Southeast Business School and Director, Institute of Research and Training, Southeast University, Bangladesh. Background about our speaker today: Dr. Zhao Meng is a Senior Lecturer at the Nanyang Business School, Nanyang Technological University, and an influential scholar in the area of social entrepreneurship in China. He was the founding director of the Yunus Center at the Renmin University of China. Dr. Zhao is currently an editorial board member at Stanford Social Innovation Review Books and Social Enterprise Journal. He is the chief editor of the Social Entrepreneurship book series published by Renmin University Press and Springer. He is a major initiator of the Beijing Initiative on China Social and Enterprise Development and a founding team member of the China Social Enterprise Service Center, which runs a digital platform for nationwide social enterprise certification. About our moderator today, Dr. Farhana Ferdousi is an assistant professor of Southeast Business School and director of the Institute of Research and Training at South University, Bangladesh. She has authored several books, chapters, and peer-reviewed international journal papers related to social business. She has presented work on the Nobel program and the Social Business Academia Conference in 2016, Social Business Learning and Innovation Fund program in 2017, the role of social business on women entrepreneurship development in 2018, the impact of social business on new entrepreneurs in 2019, human resource management and social business in 2020, and the impact of social business on entrepreneurship in 2021. Besides that, she has organized and moderated several social business ideas and planned competitions, debates, campaigns amongst her students. So today we have two very knowledgeable and experts in the area of social business and entrepreneurship, and we will hear from them today about their experiences. But before we start, I call upon Professor Mohammad Yunus for his opening words. Professor Yunus. Kindly requesting Professor Yunus to turn your camera and microphone on for your opening words. Sir, you're on mute. Can you kindly unmute yourself?
Okay, I'm on both ways. I was trying to see both of us, both Zhao and Farhana turn their camera. So it's a wonderful occasion for us to discuss social business research prospect. Right from the beginning of social business, one of the things I was trying to do, get closer to the academics, so that they can look at us and see what it means to them. Because if you are doing something new, always academics react negatively. It must be something bad, because you can't be good when you are defying the rules already established. Already theories have been accepted, and world has been following those rules and policies and theories. If you want to undo that, that must be flimsy. It must be something not based on hard ground. So we wanted to bring academics to look at us all along and see how it looks to them, despite the fact that they may be negative at us, but still we thought it's important for us to let them know what we are doing rather than ignore us. Not very many people responded to that, but a few people did and took a very serious attention to us. And among them is Dr. Zhao Meng is one, and another is Farhana Ferdousi. They are outstanding researchers and focused on social business. So we are very happy to have them both today. One is a speaker, and another is moderator. And they will explain why this is important to have the academics and their research into the subject, into the issues that we are raising, why we do that. Is it consistent? Is it something can work with people and the policymakers and so on? So these are the issues. There are many issues in social business, because you are challenging the whole concept of business. Business always meant business to make money. Maximization of profit is the goal. And we are turning this completely around. We're saying that business can also be for solving problems without any intention of making personal money. So how to accommodate both in the same platform, or dismiss one in favor of the other, whatever way it goes. What is a reality? What is the future? Is it something important to do that, review all these things, or this is just an academic gimmick that we are playing around with words and kind of something temporary? So these are the issues that needs to be addressed. And both Zhao, Meng and Farhana looked at many, many issues, and they published in social business, both of them, and continue to do so. And many others are following their footsteps. So I'm very happy to have them both today. And I'll leave the floor to Farhana to start the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Yunus and Yunus Center for giving me the opportunity to be on this platform. Also, a lot of thanks to Jinat for facilitating this event. And Dr. Meng is also a good friend to Social Business Academia. Nice to meet him again through this platform. Professor Yunus is a great philosopher, we all know, who has transmitted his social business concept not only in the field of microcredit and NGOs, but also in the field of business, healthcare, transportation, technology, sports, music, academia, and research as well. As a result of this idea, now social business models are being practiced worldwide. No formal regulatory bodies or impact assessment institutions have been developed yet to measure the success or failure of this model. And here remains the role of a researcher to investigate the theory, model, practice, and impact. Thus, the stakeholders will get the guidelines of moving forward from the academicians and researchers. Dr. Meng is a leading scholar in China on social economy. He has published on the convergence of economic and social issues in general and China in particular. As part of his research interest, he has taken a great interest in social business. Dr. Meng, in the academic world, do you see social business is drawing an interest? Is this interest fading away or getting stronger? What is your opinion?
Well, thank you, Farhana. Thank you for having me here. Well, I think that is an important question. Well, overall speaking, the broad area of social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, it has drawn a lot more interest in the past decade. If you just look at the number of publications in leading management journals, look at the number of teaching courses, training sessions, research centers, and etc. So you'll see that. But a social business is a totally different case, right? My personal opinion that that's still quite invisible to large academic area. Well, there could be several reasons about this. Professor Yunus just mentioned some of them. Like there's a well-established paradigm and infrastructure, human resources infrastructure about how to study the social issues. Well, but actually, the major thing that we need to do a lot of more work to build a conversation between social business and the current theory and the current literature. And this is not an easy thing to do. And many scholars would like to give it a try, but it's very hard for people for scholars to understand what is exactly unique about a social business, right, in terms of the process, mechanism, model, etc. So that's one thing, how to build a conversation. Another barrier could be the lack of data. As we all know that the number of enterprises that actually adopt the social business model is still quite small, and maybe several hundreds in the world. So for scholars, it's hard to develop the reliable knowledge based on this small database. And even though there could be some anecdotal successful cases about social business, so how do we know that is because of a unique feature of the social business, or that because something else? So it's just a little bit hard to do, very reliable and credible research based on these databases. But there's a potential. If you look into the qualitative, if you take an in-depth understanding of the qualitative decision-making process of social business, maybe you're going to see some difference. How can a social business, how can they do not distribute any dividend, any profit to shareholders, but at the same time, because they can still keep attracting talents and resources and become competitive? Well, this is amazing. There might be something in there, but not many scholars have this accessibility, right, to this type of, in-depth data, this kind of case studies. So there could be database related and literature related barrier, right, that may explain the invisibility of social business in the general academic area. Sorry, you're muted.
So you are saying that there is a growing interest till now because there is still some lack of infrastructure, lack of database. So still a researcher has many things to do here, right?
Yeah, I do personally, I do believe that a lot of very important and insightful ideas are associated with social business, right? But we're just not there yet to go deep enough to try to dig it out and build connection between this and the current literature.
So what is your opinion? What makes the domain of social business interesting to academicians? And what makes it uninspiring if it does so?
Right. So I do agree there's can be something that can make it interesting to academia, and something can make it uninteresting to academia. Well, if you look at a social enterprise literature, and many people are interested in this topic because it reflects the complexity of the managerial phenomenon and organizational life. Like many people want to figure out, if you have different values, conflicting values and logics and goals, how do you deal with that? How do you balance that over time? And especially social enterprise kind of reflects our basic assumption about the purpose of the business and the role in society. So scholars have this interest really to understand, to use this social enterprise as an opportunity to try to challenge the conventional assumptions about the business. I think that's maybe one of the most major reasons many scholars are interested in this area. But social business, again, is quite different from a social enterprise, I would say. Social enterprise is a broad area that comes from nonprofit organizations that may generate its own revenue towards for-profit companies that may try to solve a social problem. So it's well connected with current organizational form. But social enterprise seems to coming from nowhere. That's kind of interesting because it's a for-profit. It's competitive businesses. You do business as a euro, but at the same time, you cannot distribute any profit to the shareholders. So people feel a little bit confused about where it fits in the bigger picture. So I think that can, hinder a lot of scholars. They have to thought a lot, and they have to take a lot of time to think about, how to build a connection. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Yes, the objective, social business address social objective, social motive, and still they have the profit motive. So it's a lot of scholars is interested in this area, how they're balancing between these two. So that's nice. Now, do you see any confusion between social business and social enterprise among practitioners and academicians?
Well, I do not see a lot of confusion, but it's not necessarily a good thing, because I believe that there's no many debates or confusions about the concept because people are basically not aware of this, and they don't want to talk a lot about the social business, and because that may sounds too unfamiliar to them. And as I understand, for many practitioners, even though they see the difference between social enterprise and social business, they try not to talk a lot about it. And because they worry that may scare away the stakeholders and the clients. And many people try to promote social enterprise, but social enterprise is already too new and too complicated for many people. Then you tell them you should do business and you do not distribute any profits. They just quickly lose their interest. So many practitioners simply do not talk about social business. But I personally believe, as practitioners and researchers, we should take courage to talk more about social businesses. If you simply look at, social business is a relatively pure, form of social entrepreneurship. And this purity is very powerful. If you look at a social business, it's not just about do not distribute any profit, but also how do you make decisions to make sure the board will focus on social mission. And look at the governance structure, right? Look at how you engage with your shareholders. And for example, the Renmin and Nanyang case, so look at how many shareholder employees that actually support the Nanyang group to set up this entity, social business, with the knowledge that this will not distribute any profit to the shareholders. This is amazing, but actually this is working. And also, just think about the Patagonia, right? The great news last week, they donate 100% of stock to the trust and to the environmental organization, right? And you think about, how many companies in, Scandinavian countries, like more than 20% of large companies in Denmark, they are owned by foundations. It looks to me pretty much like social business model. So actually, social business is not only extraordinary, it's actually working. And I think this message is totally different from the understanding of the purpose of business in many other places in the world. So I think social business should be widely heard by many people, and other researchers, we should take more courage to study that, to write about it and talk about it.
So what do you see among the practitioners? Are they thinking social business and social enterprise are the same, or is there any difference? Or they're just keeping these boundaries within their concept, within their practice? What is your opinion regarding this? Is the thing same? You are saying social business is a relatively new concept, but what about the practitioners, how they're thinking about it?
So you're talking about the difference between social entrepreneurs who try to do social enterprise and those who try to do social business?
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, first of all, we all know that, the number of practitioners of social business is kind of tiny proportion in the world, right? And to my knowledge, and most practitioners of social business, they're kind of well-established companies. They are relatively well-established. Then they try to take one step further, right, to do something that can really maximize the social impact. Well, a majority of social entrepreneurs who try to do social enterprise, I think they're still very early stage, very small, right, struggling to make money to survive. So very different population. So I talked to many social entrepreneurs, and very few of them thought about, the idea of social business. But if somebody try something that is similar to social business to me, I can see the difference. And the major difference to me is that, they really have different understanding of the vision or the ultimate status of the business. If somebody tell you that, okay, I ran the business in order to develop a self-sustaining solution to a social problem in the future, that is more like social business to me. So they're just trying to solve the social problem, but when the social problem is gone, the business might be gone. I think the people who run social business more easily understand this vision of the business. But for people who try to run social enterprise, I think it may be more difficult for them to understand this point. It's easier for social entrepreneurs to understand sustainability or to understand how to use business as a tool to solve social problems. But it's much harder for many people to understand, my final purpose is not to, continue my business so I can sustainably generate social impact, but my purpose should be, leaving a legacy on a kind of a solution to solving a social problem. And my business may be gone if the social problem is solved. So much less number of people will understand this point and try to do this. So let me give you a quick example. I talked to some Chinese social entrepreneurs. some of them try to deal with the issue of young people with this mental disability, mentally challenged young people. And there's one social enterprise try to hire the young people with mental disability to do car washing services, and they're doing very well. They keep growing. But when I talk to the founder doesn't talk a lot about the future of the business in terms of how do they expand the business, how many new stores they want to open in the future, then how many many profit they can make so they can recruit more people. It's not like that. Now his vision is to get a piece of land, a large piece of land, where you can set up a lot of social enterprises, cooperatives, farms that can hire the young people with mental disability, so they can keep working there. And even after the parents pass away, and they can still just make their own money and live on their own capability. So that's the final purpose of his business. So this sounds to me more like social business rather than social enterprise. But the most of the people I talk with, they do not easily buy this idea. So if they talk about social business, I can tell the difference. But most people still mainly talking about social enterprise rather than social business.
So you want to say there is a still gap among the concept. Most of the people, they're familiar with the social enterprise, not the social business yet, right? So in your opinion, what are the strengths of these two categories? I mean, in case of social business, social enterprise, how do you see what are its features, what are its strengths, and what are the strengths of social businesses, and what are the differences in your opinion?
First of all, I think none of them is more advantaged than another one. None of them is just better than other in terms of solving social problems, because we need both categories. And a social business is relatively pure, and I think it's a highly self-constrained category, which means you put the constraint to yourself to make sure you always keep your eyes on solving the social problem, right? So you do not distribute the profits, and you develop a governance structure, you develop a relationship with investors, with shareholders in this way. So everybody understands what they're doing the business for, right? But a social enterprise is large range, as I just mentioned. So many people can find their connection with social enterprise. It may be difficult for them to see how they relate to social business, but much easier for them to relate to social enterprise. So in this term, social enterprise can absorb more people in society, right? To run the business in a way which is beyond, corporate social responsibility, and which really to focus the business resources on solving the social problem. But they're not there yet to run the social business. So I think both of them will have their own strengths, right, in terms of mobilizing different kinds of social resources to solve the social problems. Yeah.
So we see in business school courses, in professional conferences and academic courses, social enterprise is widely discussed issues, and many even do not know even the social businesses. And your research work, your field work also proves so that many people still do not know the difference between social enterprise and social businesses. So do you see the same in the research agenda? In research domain, how do you see, in journal, in a reviewer, or in writing your research paper, do you see the mix of these two ideas, or the researcher using these two concepts similarly, or they're differentiating it?
Well, I would say people talk about social enterprise rather than social business, and that's it. So social business is not a concept that can be easily connected with the theory or field in the current management studies, exactly as what Professor Yunus mentioned. So in this case, I guess many scholars, even though they're looking at a social business, they want to call that a social enterprise or purpose-driven business, or hybrid organization, or double goal organization, something like that, right? So that is how they translate this area into the literature we have knowledge about. So I will not say it's simply that people, researchers don't look at social business, but they need to find a way to turn that into the kind of language that scholars will understand and will make some comment on, right? But it's not there yet that the social business can become a distinctive category that people will refer to when they do mainstream management studies, right? So the legitimacy and the category issue is still very big for the social business. It's really important for people to understand if it's really different from a social enterprise. And if people really see the difference and by the difference, it's much easier for scholars to look at it as distinctive category.
If I share my experience, I would say I have very few experience regarding dealing with the reviewer. I have seen several times, 2 or 3 times, I have seen that when I pursue my paper on social business, specifically social business, and then the reviewer make comments, you should incorporate more literature on social business. When I want to convince them, there is very few literature specifically on social business, rather more literature is available on social enterprises, then they say to me that it's not a new concept. So there are lots of literature because the concept of social enterprise, it is being practiced from 1980s. So it's a lot several decades before we have got these ideas. So I think in academic world, in the research world, still people do not have clear conception regarding social business. We people, those who are directly related with social business, we know where is the difference. But many people still, they think that it is the same, and they treat the research or treat the things in a similar way. They sometimes they make comments, what is the global impact of this, how it can be practiced worldwide, if your your case study is in Bangladesh, how we can apply it in worldwide. So I think there is a gap till now, right?
Yeah. So I guess the scholars will ask the question is, of course we all see the difference practically speaking. But how can social business make difference in terms of theory? I think that's what the scholars are talking about. So if we can somehow show that the difference between social enterprise and social business is not only the way you distribute profit or the way you engage with employees, but also there's just to give an example, some particular way of making decisions, the relationship between the different stakeholders, the decision makers and the shareholders, and the relationship between the board members. How can they come up with a decision that you run a business not to make money, but to solve a social problem as a very ultimate purpose? It's something like that. So there could be some underlying mechanism that can tell the social business from the general social enterprise that simply try to continuously create social value. But this is not clear yet. And what can they say to the current theory is not clear yet. But I have the confidence that theory often follows practice. So I guess more people will be interested in doing the research about social business when we have more and more cases that show people, wow, this could be something different. This could be alternative to the social enterprise. Then more researchers will just follow up.
Yes, it's a great idea. We need to focus more on practicing case. So in that cases, people would come to know what and how this concept is different from social enterprises. Okay, now my question to you, are business leaders genuinely interested in the social dimension of their business? I mean, in social business cases, sometimes we see people are practicing corporate social responsibility, or they're investing on social purpose, but it's a kind of like they have some superficial public relation concern. They want to make just make it to show. They want to show up it. So, what is your thought regarding this? You have conducted a lots of research, and what is your findings? Are people using this social dimension as a as just promoting their business. What is your opinion regarding this?
Well, this is I think that's a great question. I think this is something that I may not have good answer to, right? But my personal observation is that there seems to be a spectrum for in terms of how people want to do business, how you can create social value. From the very left end, we have this philanthropy and the traditional CSR. So you seem to have regular activities to do social good. You can have CSR department. You can release a social report every year, right? And you can have CSR staff, something like that. But this is quite additional to the company. So as you said, the social activity becomes a tool to serve the business interests. It could be reputation, or it could be R&D, or it could be employee engagement, community relationship. But the more and more companies try to do what many people call strategic CSR. So they try to connect the social activity with their core business expertise. So to make sure the social value creation activities can serve their strategic goal and the competitiveness in the market. So the social activity become more sustainable, and it receives more resources from the company. But this is not good enough. And now a larger number, increasing number of companies try to take a step further to become double bottom line businesses. For example, the benefit corporation, or community interest company in the UK, or flexible purpose company in the US. So there's a legal category that require you to not only maximizing shareholder interest, but also taking care of the right range of stakeholder interest. So if you register in this legal category as double bottom line business, you cannot easily drift away from your social mission. So now back to your question, they become more authentic. Either they're willing to do or they have to do, they become more authentic in terms of creating social value. But I look at social enterprise and a social business as more, a kind of a strict, organizational form of social entrepreneurship, right? So they move more towards the social side, compared to double bottom line businesses, because they only have one organizational goal, which is to resolve the social problem. So if you want to run a business, you have many options. And when you choose different option, you may have different expectation of the authenticity in terms of how you create social value. And you face different level of pressures from stakeholders, from governments, and from your employees about how to create a social value. So I will not say many business doing social good simply to benefit their interests. It really depends on which option do you take. But it's very hard for us to understand which option they really take on the surface. But in some countries, there are legal category for double bottom businesses. So you have to commit to social value creation. But in most countries in the world, there's no such legal category. And even for social business, even though I claim I'm doing social business, I may change. So I may change overnight in some places. Yes, social business, in some places, you have this very tight board member relationship. You need to change organizational constitution. But in many other places, people claim themselves doing social business, but there's no, external constraints, right? So they really, depending on, context by context. But I believe that, we do need more mechanisms to make sure you create social value in an authentic way or sustainable way. And we can learn a lot from a social business about how to build such mechanism. It doesn't matter if you try to do strategic CSR or double bottom line, maybe we can learn something from social business, especially how you organize your relationship with different stakeholders, how you build up the governance structure, right, to make sure you keep yourself on track of creating a social value.
So we can see both of the business, they have a temptation for mission drift. In this sense, the corporation or the true businesses, they have multiple stakeholders. They have to satisfy multiple stakeholders. So they not only can concentrate on social issues of their businesses, but also they have to accommodate other issues on their businesses. Similarly, the same thing happens to the social mission-driven businesses as well. I mean, social organizations, social enterprises as well. They have the social mission clear. They have clear social mission, but still they have to remain sustainable. So sometimes they might have the issue of mission drift, right?
Mm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So just for audience, I'm summarizing this one. Now, would you tell us when and how social consent can be integrated into all businesses? Can we expect that all businesses in some day will be a social business or social enterprise, and how we can address this?
So how to integrate social goal into business?
Yes.
Right. So actually, there are many ways to do that, and many people try to do this, from different perspectives. They come from different angles and different organizational forms, right? So, I think maybe I like this question, but I think a bigger issue is, while many people try to integrate social goal in business in different ways, but there could be some unexpected or some negative outcome when they try to do the integration. So increasingly, scholars realize that, okay, it can be difficult to rely on the business itself to voluntarily integrate the social goal into the business and expect to solve the social problem. Like CSR or, as I said, double bottom line, and there are also many other concepts like stakeholder capitalism. I believe you heard about this. And also like creating share value. So many people offer these new solutions and models about how to integrate social goal into business. However, there's research shows that when you try to, the company always try to focus on the most powerful stakeholders they want to satisfy. We're often at the expense of much smaller and more irrelevant stakeholders. For example, they may abuse the suppliers in order to, manufacture a very innovative environmental product. And when you manufacture electric, when you manufacture electric car, for example, people find out you may consume a lot of water and other non-renewable resources. And when many companies try to sell green products, overall, encouraging overconsumption. And when a lot of people, buy the green products, actually you overconsume it and you create more, waste, and you use more resources to manufacture the green products. So there's some unintended consequences that may actually make it less likely for you to solve the problem, while you believe you are solving the problem. So this means that, okay, if you only look at how business integrates social goal into their operation, it's not good enough. And the solution could be, we need to look at a more collective process, how business work together with governments, nonprofits, and researchers to come up with a solution, because they are able to see the big picture and reduce the risk that the business solution may generate some unintended consequences. So I think back to a question, how to integrate the social goal into the business. I think the best way is to do this in a collective way by working with other different stakeholders rather than rely on your own investment and technology.
So that's a great idea you have incorporated. So we can see that the social business or social motive, it will be a part of a strategy of businesses, all kinds of businesses, and the stakeholders in the coming days will be more conscious, will be more aware about their return. So in order to incorporate all those issues, maybe the social concern or the social businesses or the concept of social businesses need to be integrated into all kinds of businesses. And as you addressed, we need more collaboration, industry and academic collaboration in that purpose, right? So thank you for your valuable opinion. Now, would you please say something about ESG and SDG. What is the concept stands for, and are these ESG and SDG taken seriously by businesses to the extent they're ready to compromise with their profit objective? And if so, to what extent?
Well, another, sorry?
ESG,
ESG,
should I repeat? Yes,
exactly. So I got the question, but I think this is another question that kind of beyond my professional knowledge. But again, my personal observation is that, it's kind of tricky, because your question is, how business can do ESG, SDG, even try to, well, they accept that they may compromise their profitability objective. I'm not sure that is the type of language that practitioners actually use when they talk about how they use ESG. Well, so the type of language people often use is that, okay, how can I use ESG to generate more stable and long-term profits by creating social value or reducing social risks? So again, ESG is more like a tool, right, for you to grow your business sustainably. And at the same time, you do not really, harm the wide range of stakeholders' interests, obviously, right? You try to reduce the risk. So I guess, this is not only about practitioners, but even researchers. So if you can read the majority of the studies about ESG, researchers try to find out how ESG can help you make more money and compete well in the market. So it's not about how you can do ESG anyway, but even though that this may somehow reduce your profitability or reduce your chance to compete favorably in the market, right? So this trade-off can happen, but I think there's totally different mindset system from social enterprise and social business. So social business understands the trade-off and purposefully, maximize the social value creation. Well, they accept that they may somehow slow down the growth of the business, and they would rather, restructure the value chain to innovate on different parts of the business, but they do not want to compromise, right, their social value in their activities. But this totally different mindset from ESG. Well, for ESG, social is still the tools for the business goals. And the researchers is kind of unthinkable for, I guess, most researchers to say that, okay, I want to do some study about how ESG is important, even though that will, reduce your profitability. So again, the very different mindsets. So ESG and social business and social enterprise, they still can require different types of people, practitioners and researchers to take a look at. I still do see a lot of conversation between the two fields, two community of people.
So as we are seeing, we are progressing. Maybe social business concept will be well understood by the people in future, and we are working around this. The researcher, the academicians, and the business organization is also changing their views in order to incorporate both social and profit mission. So what is in your opinion, what would be the nature of business 50 years from now?
Oh, wow, that's a big one. I think it's many people's anticipation is that definitely more and more company will incorporate a social goal in their business, but maybe not because they're willing to do this, but mainly because of pressure, right? They look at the pressure from the stakeholders, from governments, from investors. So definitely you expect a larger community of business want to do that, on purpose. But I think a more interesting trend to me is that, as Professor Yunus said, that maybe social business can become a strong alternative to doing business in the future, which means you have very different goal when you do business. You try to focus on providing a solution to solving a social problem rather than accumulating your wealth while you can creating social value. So I do hope social business although it may not replace the mainstream business model, but it can become more visible and even desirable alternative to business a couple of decades later. Yeah.
Okay, I hope so. In future, maybe we will integrate social business, or it will be, this philosophy will be well understood by all the people, all the community, business community and academic world. So thank you, Dr. Zhao Meng, for your valuable sharing. Now we are at the end of the session, so I would hand over this session to Jinath. Jinath, please.
Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed the part about, social business, social entrepreneurship discussion. That was very insightful, because that's often a question among many people, not only students, academics, on this topic. So thank you very much for discussing on the topic, and I'm sure this will carry over to many of our future conversations. So thank you to Dr. Zhao Meng and Dr. Farhana Ferdousi for your time and effort, and being a part of this session of our YSBC lecture series. So thank you very much again. We welcome you to our events that are coming up in the future. And with that, we end our session today. But we will now play some slideshows about our upcoming sessions, upcoming events. The Global Social Business Summit is coming up in November. On the 7th and 8th of November, it's happening in Turin in Italy. It's our first live gathering of our social business family since the pandemic, so I welcome everyone to join. Registration is open, so please do check it out. The link will be posted in the chat box, and it's also going to be shown on screen. Please check it out. It's the Global Social Business Summit and the Social Business Academia Forum, which will be happening on the 7th of November, and everyone is welcome to join, so please do check it out. Now I request the tech team to play the slides. Thank you very much. See you all again. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you in the next lecture session.